Does Drew need to actually call it to order or not? Does Drew need to actually call it to order?
Yeah.
Does
Just say, we're gonna call this.
you just turned it on?
Good morning, y'all. Let's go ahead and be grabbing our seats. Good morning, everybody. Oh, that's loud. Man, whenever we dreamed up a tourism study committee a few months ago, we never expected a crowd like this on the first meeting. So I very much appreciate you guys coming and being here with us this morning. We're going to do a few formalities before we get into the meat of the discussion. So I've been told that I have to say I'm calling this meeting to order. So for us to be legitimate, we're calling it to order, and we're going to hear from a couple of local guests before we really kick this thing off. I'm going to ask my friend Robin Lynch if she'll come up, and she's going to tell you a little bit about where we're at. Robin works with the Gainesville CVB and does a phenomenal job here in Hall County.
Thank you, Senator Eccles. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Gainesville. I'm so glad to have you here at the Boathouse and at Lake Lanier Olympic Park. This space was built with tourism dollars through our local hotel motel tax, and now it's home to corporate meetings, community celebrations, and special events all year. Right outside these doors, the Olympic Park is still carrying the flame from the 1996 Olympic Games, bringing local, regional, national, and even international athletes here to train and to compete. In 2026, we'll add another chapter to that legacy when we host the NCAA Women's National Rowing Championship for all three divisions. When it comes to tourism, Georgia has something no one else can match: a little bit of everything. From the coast to the mountains, from big city energy to small town charm, we offer truly unique experiences. Imagine what we could do with a unified year-round campaign. Telling our story season by season, sharing that famous Southern hospitality, and promoting it with the kind of bold, coordinated marketing that gets results. Fund big, market big, and win big. Thank you for being here and for the work you're doing to shape the future of Georgia's tourism. I hope today's discussion inspires all of us to dream big and work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Right now, we're going to have Miss Stacy Dixon come up. Stacy's with the Lake Lanier CVB, and she helped with a dinner last night for some of our industry friends and some of the senators down at Lake Lanier Islands. So we appreciate Stacy being here and everything she does.
Thank you, Drew. Welcome, everybody. We're glad to have you in Hall County on the shore of Lake Lanier and this beautiful venue, thanks to the city of Gainesville and their tourism efforts. I want to thank Drew and all the other elected officials who are on this panel, this committee, and say that you have an opportunity right now. Our industry is at a very fragile crossroads. To be frank, and since they asked me to have talking points, I'm going to tell you, we have suffered through a fever dream the last 5 years. It has been a nightmare. And leadership, I'm excluding Jay because he got drawn into this as to help us have a voice. And so I appreciate you, Jay. But we have really suffered these last 5 years. And the kind of self-serving, toxic, exclusionary, wall-building leadership that we've had in our Explore Georgia department has been divisive, has excluded destinations, and has caused a lot of strife. So this group has an opportunity. Obviously, you can see by the interest in the people in this room that the opportunity for change and the support for what you come up with to help us be better is there for you. We want leaders that lift us as they climb, and this is your chance to do that. Lake Lanier is one of the largest tourist attractions in Georgia. We have over 13 million visitors a year. And an example of how leadership that helps us climb is the week of Memorial Day. Unceremoniously, the Corps of Engineers closed 20 parks on our lake the Wednesday before Memorial Day. That was not only heartbreaking, but devastating to us potentially economically. Well, I'm glad to report that our local, some state and federal governments all got together. Communication, collaboration, and partnership has led to, from May 27th to today, of those 20 parks, 18 are back open. There are 16 more rangers on the lake. There's partnerships in place that might not have happened otherwise. So although that was an emergency, we worked together, private and public, to resolve that problem for the citizens and the visitors who use the lake. So it can be done. I do want to speak to the product development program that had been disbanded in the Explore Georgia Department of Economic Development. This project, our $6 million brand new children's museum in Oakwood, and the vibrant downtown in Flowery Branch are all direct projects from our product development study in 2017. We have the receipts to show that that project that goes into communities and evaluates a community and comes back, not with here's some state money, but here's state money that brought experts together to help you see your opportunities. Then what you do with that is up to you. Well, our community took that and did something with it, and we have product to show for it. So that's a program we miss that we want to see, because it's probably about time for us to have a temperature check and see what's next, but also our other communities across the state that haven't had the opportunity to benefit from that are just left in the dark. Lastly, short-term rentals seems to be a really hot button issue, and there's been some discussion about whether or not the state should regulate and how they could. I will say this, Hall County is a national leader in short-term rental, in the ordinances, in the compliance, and in the revenue. So if you're looking for somewhere to make advice on, I would recommend that you look at what we've done here in Hall County. And we've been aggressively working on it since 2007. So we have a lot of history. We have a good system in place. It's not necessarily that it's not a cookie cutter. It's not something that's going to work for every single community, but we certainly have some pitfalls that other communities could avoid, and maybe the state could help influence on things like compliance, those type things. So all that being said, I'm glad you're here. I thank you sincerely for giving your time, taking this leap, and reaching out to us as constituents to hear how things can be better. So have a great session, and I'll be out in the wings listening. Thank you.
This microphone's a little weird. Thank you, Stacy. We appreciate those comments. I've got quite a list, and I think this list here of elected officials, it says two things. It says that the folks who are elected around here in Hall County and in Northeast Georgia take tourism very seriously. They're here to support all you guys, our local folks. They're here to support our statewide partners. So it's just, and then the second thing is that they're here supporting me. We talk about that a lot as a delegation. It's a team effort, and I sincerely appreciate everybody in our delegation being here, and appreciate the local leadership. I'm going to go through these right quick. If you'll stand and wave your hand, just wave at us just a second. Got State Representative Lee Hawkins, State Representative Emery Donahue, State Representative Devin Seaball, State Representative Matt Dubnick, State Senator Steve Gucci Main from Dahlonega. There he is. Got the Hall County Chairman, Commission Chairman David Gibbs, Got Hall County Commissioner Jeff Stowe. There he is. From Gainesville City, we've got Mayor Sam Kuvion. Got City Councilman Danny Dunnigan. We've got Miss Julie Hayes, City Councilwoman Julie Hayes. There she is. City Councilwoman Abigail Guzman. City Councilwoman Barbara Brooks. We have Mayor Ed Ashbridge from Flowery Branch. There's my guy. Listen, I appreciate every single one of y'all being here. We may have left somebody out. We were taking notes as folks were coming in as hard as we could. If we left anybody out, I apologize, but it just means a lot that so many leaders from across Hall County and outside of Hall County are here all across Northeast Georgia. Obviously, it means a lot. Right now, I'm going to ask my fellow senators, my colleagues, to if they'll introduce themselves, tell us where they're from, and we'll get on with the program.
Good morning, everyone. I'm State Senator Emmanuel Jones. I represent the 10th District, which includes Henry County, and it stretches all the way up to North DeKalb. Glad to be here, my 22nd year upcoming in the General Assembly.
They messed up and gave me a microphone. You want me to sing? Y'all, I'm Russ Goodman. I represent the 8th Senate District down in South Georgia. Goes from Valdosta, Waycross, Blackshear, that area down there. Have the honor of serving as the chairman of the Senate Ag Committee. 7th generation Georgia farmer. So we appreciate y'all sending Drew up there. We added another member of the Farm Caucus there. Of course, we had Shelley before, and she was part of the Farm Caucus as well. But had a great, really appreciated all the hospitality last night. Got here yesterday and had a great meal out at Lake Lanier Islands, and really enjoyed the fellowship. And I just really, y'all, I've been on several study committees over the years, and I don't believe I've ever seen this much participation, this many people coming out to talk about the issue. And so I'm excited about it, and hopefully we'll be able to move the ball forward, and really appreciate y'all. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Good morning. These are weird. Hold on. Good morning. I am Senator Sonia Halpern. I represent District 39, which is in Fulton County. I live in Atlanta, so I've got a district that's Atlanta and 4 other cities just south of Atlanta. I am the chair of the Fulton County delegation, excited to be here today with all of you as we start this work. My family, our business is food service. We're in the restaurant business, so we are in the hospitality industry. I care very much about the work that we are getting ready to embark on here today, not just personally, but because I really do understand the contributions that we make, whether you're in a restaurant, whether you're convention, whether you are hotels, whether you are the creative economy, whether you are all of the number of industries that fall under hospitality and tourism. I'm really excited about the work that we're about to embark on and excited to be part of the study committee.
Your senator. I don't care where you live in Georgia. I'm it. Keep voting for the one you're voting for, but I'm your senator, because the only way we do things at the Capitol is by majority. And I'm glad to have our chairman here, taking the reins, because I was such a failure in the 2 times I've chaired the Committee on Economic Development and Tourism. We added that name to it when I became that chair. I will tell you that it's a great honor to get to serve with my esteemed colleagues here. Look forward to some great things. Unlike Russ Goodman over here, said he thinks that agriculture is the #1 industry in the state. And I love to eat. You can tell that. And I know agriculture is #1. But guess what #2 is? And they're sneaking up on him. So if we do our job right, maybe tourism becomes #1. Said they're great to be with you.
We got a couple more guests, and I'm going to, if y'all just oblige me here, there was a a gentleman, I'm going to refer to him as the mayor of Georgia. He works for the speaker right now, the speaker's chief of staff, Mr. Chris Riley, standing back here in the back. Y'all oblige me with just a little anecdote right quick. Last summer, Chris asked me what I wanted to do in the Senate, and I told him that I wanted to work on tourism. And I think it may have caught him off guard because he probably thought I wanted to go, talk about farming or whatever. But Chris told me, he said, let me think about that just a little bit. And, a week or so later, we talked, and, he said it's probably not a good idea to go down to Atlanta and start trying to shove legislation through the pipeline when you really don't. What he meant was you really don't even know what you're talking about. So why don't you get a study committee first? That's what he meant. He said in a very, very nice way that. So here we are, Chris. This is what you got me into, a room full of people, and I appreciate the help and the guidance. We also got Luke Hetland back there. Where's Luke at? I see Luke right there. Give Luke a hand. Luke is with the Lieutenant Governor's office, and I'm just excited and very, very thankful that Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones has put such an emphasis on this committee. They have been eager to help at every step of the way. They have, charged Senate Press and the Secretary of Senate's office, Pro Tem's office, they help Drew out. He's a freshman. He don't know what he's doing, but we're really concerned about this committee, and we want to see it do well. So I owe a lot to the Lieutenant Governor and his staff. So how this thing was created, it was Senate Resolution 323, and we got that together. And what it was, we want to make just very simple. We want Georgia to be the #1 state in the nation for tourism. We have great lakes, we have great mountains, we have beaches, we have all the things. We got great cities and sports teams and all the things. I've told the committee, I've told some of the folks who are helping with the committee that we don't have to leave here in November and pass a huge, big, beautiful tourism bill. There's a lot of small nuggets out there that we're going to try to grab a hold of during this process. We're going to hear from industry leaders all over the state of Georgia. Got some great speakers lined up for today. Our charge is very clear. It's to explore in all the ways that Georgia can fully leverage its natural beauty, cultural heritage, outdoor recreation, hospitality, and events to become the nation's leader in tourism. So, again, it's simple. It's all the things that we have already at our fingertips. How can we promote it better? What does the industry need from the legislature to do that? Any ideas? Is it zonings that we might be able to help with from a state level? Is it marketing money? What are the needs of the industry? We're going to be talking about the workforce development when we go to Savannah next month. So we're going to be covering a lot of stuff. We're just excited that you guys are excited to be here, and I think it shows by how many people are in the room. Our first speaker that we have today is a friend of mine from down on the southern end of the county. He started swimming last night at about 11, and he finally got here this morning. Matthew Bowling, he runs Lake Lanier Islands. He and his grandfather run Lake Lanier Islands. He's got Missy Burgess with him as well. I think Missy's his right arm. Matthew's going to be talking to us a little bit about the Lake Lanier Islands Authority and how that works down there for them at Lake Lanier Islands.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is quite a crowd. I see a lot of familiar faces out there and a lot of friends. For those of you who don't know me, as Senator Eccles just said, my name is Matthew Bowling. Really proud to represent Lanier Islands Resort, and just really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here with y'all today. On behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank the committee for this opportunity. Thank you. And for your dedication to this conversation about growing tourism in Georgia. Thank you, Senator Eccles, for this opportunity and for letting Lanier Islands be such a big part. I'm very proud of the role that we play in the tourism community in Hall County and in Georgia. And I look forward to sharing that story with you all today. A little bit of my agenda. So the story of Lanier Islands is one of a very important historic public-private partnership with deep roots in Georgia history that has significantly benefited the tourism industry. So I will begin by discussing our origination as a public park, the significance and role of our development authority, the Lake Lanier Islands Development Authority, and we have our distinguished executive director, Charles Burton, here today. The significant private investment that has been poured into Lanier Islands after the privatization, the tourism and economic impact of Lanier Islands, and also some thoughts on the Georgia tourism industry, and of course, questions as we go. So first, to start with the history. So going way back in 1962, Georgia leased the islands of Lake Lanier from the Army Corps of Engineers. That same year, the Georgia General Assembly created the Lake Lanier Islands Development Authority, LIDA, as we call it. LIDA assumed responsibility for the development of the islands on behalf of Georgia and the Department of Natural Resources, and their mission was to plan, develop, and operate the islands to encourage the expansion of tourism in North Georgia. And as you can see here, at that time, a large proponent of expansion at the islands, the LIDA chairman, Sylvan Myers, making a presentation to the State Senate Appropriations Committee. So here we are more than 6 years later doing a similar thing, which I think is really neat. The first major accomplishment of LIDA and Lanier Islands was the construction of our bridge, as you can see in the top left, in 1969. The bridge was named after Georgia's then U.S. Senator Richard B. Russell, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with some federal funding assistance. Senator Russell was an early advocate of the island's development and also was credited with important things like creating the Board of Regents. If you've been to Lanier Islands, you know how important this bridge is this is the only way on and off the island. So we're very thankful for that foresight there. The 1970s, fast forwarding a bit, brought a lot of exciting development to the islands with the construction of our first hotel and conference center, cabins, and a Pine Isle golf course designed by senators. Can any of y'all guess who that is in the top right there? That is Gary Player. So it's a Gary Player design, which is a really neat historic fact. One of the only golfers to ever win all 4 major championships. The 1970s through the 1990s were an important time at the islands as we received Georgia's very first water slide in 1977. We received an entire water park by 1987. The second hotel, Legacy Lodge and Conference Center, opened in 1989. And of course, the famous Magical Nights of Lights, which was created in 1993, one of the preeminent light shows in the country. In the 1990s, then Governor Zell Miller began requesting information on publicly held state resort properties, including Lake Lanier Islands, and he founded a commission to study the impact of privatization. The committee found that the state would benefit from the privatization effort through an increase in rent and a reduction in expenses of state properties. So the islands were officially privatized in 1996. Fast forward to 2005, and my family and my grandfather, Virgil Williams, acquired the operating rights to Lanier Islands. Over the next decade, the property underwent significant upgrades through public and private investment that transformed it into an important player in Georgia tourism. Now to talk to you a little bit about the Lake Lanier Islands Development Authority. After the privatization, the role of LIDA changed to that from a day-to-day operator to one of important government oversight and support. The LIDA board is comprised of 9 members, and of course, our executive director, Charles, from around the state, and it focuses on everything from tracking revenue, monitoring premises use, approving our private capital projects, investing and upgrading infrastructure, and of course, if you're hosting an event, something really important, issuing liquor licenses. As you can see, this is a really special infrastructure investment that was made at the property, which shows some of the flags of Georgia, which we're really proud of. Some of the projects that LIDA was able to immediately help with was first the stabilization of the 27 miles of our shorelines, which is continuously ongoing. The design of 13 miles of wilderness fitness trails around the property, which you can see on the map above. They also invested in important new wastewater and reclamation facilities and sewer infrastructure and pump stations on the property. LIDA also was able to help modernize our roads and roundabouts, invest in bridge upgrades, invest in infrastructure features, and also enhance our parking lots with security and proper paving for the benefits of Georgia and tourism. Lanier Islands continues to work with LIDA to determine ways to invest and upgrade the state's property and assets every day. And importantly, anytime we want to produce a private project, we actually have to go to the Army Corps of Engineers to get approval, and LIDA is our important representative in that effort. LIDA also does an amazing job of just supporting us in the community and does a fantastic job of overseeing us. Now on to private development. So since the privatization effort, we have contributed significant investment into Lanier Islands to move the property from a state park with lodging to a first-class resort with state-of-the-art facilities. Initially, we focused on the enhancement of the property's hospitality offerings as we knew this would truly drive tourism. We renovated and expanded our flagship hotel, Legacy Lodge, which you can see at the bottom. It has approximately 216 rooms and about 20,000 square feet of conference space. We renovated our 30 existing lake houses. We constructed 36 brand new villa rooms right on the water. We also recognize the significance of Lanier Islands as an important wedding destination. So we began enhancing and developing new wedding venues around the property. As you can see in the top left, that's a venue we're really proud of called Venetian Pier, which has 360 water views. Several years later, we redesigned the Legacy Golf Course into what is now considered one of Georgia's finest public courses. Some refer to it as the Pebble Beach of the South. We also have constructed Georgia's longest snow slide, which is over 500 feet long. We transformed the previous public campgrounds into a first-class RV resort with concrete pads, Wi-Fi, and clubhouse amenities. And we've added a number of docks and marina slips to attract boaters around the state and around the country. More recently, we have moved our attention towards advanced recreational opportunities that we feel will help attract a broader transient audience around the country. This includes the addition of a brand new water slide, the first water coaster in Georgia, called Apocalypso. It includes the addition of our Game Changer facility, which is an 11,000 square foot, 2-story gaming and entertainment venue, and also trying to keep up with the trends, converted our tennis courts into what is the hottest sport in America right now, pickleball. The project that we are most excited and most proud about right now that some of you all were able to experience last night is our brand new chapel on Lanier. This is a brand new wedding and event venue that seats approximately 150 people with a beautiful reception garden that we're just really proud of. It sits on one of the highest points of the lake. Now, with all of that investment going into the islands, there's, of course, a significant amount of tourism and economic impact that is created for the state of Georgia. In fact, we consider ourselves a front porch for North Georgia tourism, and I am proud to share with you why. We attract visitors from all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and abroad. We host over 1 million visitors, 150,000 hospitality guests, 40,000 golfers, over 500 companies, nonprofits, and associations, a tremendous amount of golf tournaments and weddings, We found that our interests of our customer profile is boating and sailing, camping, hiking, gourmet food, physical fitness, wildlife, and golf, all things that we are very easily able to provide at Lanier Islands that attract tourism to the state of Georgia. We are also very proud of the economic development that is created as a result of the tourism that we attract at Lanier Islands. We are responsible for employing over 700 full or part-time associates. We work with over 100 vendors, contractors, and agencies on an annual basis. And we have an annual total economic impact of $113 million. We also are very proud of our CVB, which you heard from Stacy, and we're very proud to be a major contributor to that. We also recognize the important role that we play in the community by providing an attractive corporate retreat and playground for businesses and thought leaders that are already here in the community, and also new businesses. We're very proud, for example, that King's Hawaiian, some of those closing dinners that brought their facilities here to Hall County occurred at Lanier Islands Resort. We also provide resources for nonprofits to grow their mission, as well as support many organizations and charities throughout the state. And we provide recreational activities that drive tourism, festivals, and concerts year-round. Just this summer at Lanier Islands, we've hosted a free summer concert series where we've welcomed thousands of Georgians to enjoy a beautiful night at our amphitheater overlooking the lake. Here you can see some of the organizations with which we partner in the community. Some are very local to Hall County, such as the Georgia Mountain Food Bank, who we provide resources to and periodically allow folks to come through our resort for free of charge in exchange for canned goods that we provide to the food bank. We're also very proud of our partnership with the Lake Lanier Association, who we assist in cleaning up Lake Lanier on an annual basis, and also the P4 Childhood Cancer Foundation, which we provide our venue and facilities to free of charge so that they can raise awareness and funding for their organization. Also, selfishly, I'm very proud, this probably unpopular here in Hall County, but we've recently struck up a partnership with Georgia Tech Athletics, which I think is a wonderful example of tourism in the state. As folks come to Georgia Tech games this fall from all over the ACC, they'll see advertisements for Lanier Islands and tourism in Georgia, and hopefully that's an attractor for them to return at another time. I didn't hear any Go Jackets, but okay. Maybe some Go Dogs. There it is, Go Jackets. Thank you from the back. In closing, Lanier Islands is very proud of the role that we play in Georgia as a premier lakeside resort destination. And we also believe that we're a great example of the cross-section of private business and government with our relationship with LIDA, as you all strike out on this study committee to find ways that the business community and government can work together to improve tourism. And we're grateful for everything that you senators already have done and everything you will consider with this study committee. And the following are just simply thoughts that we have in terms of how to further advance tourism. Number one, we support tax rebates and incentives for private tourism development. Number two, we support the continued focus on CVBs in our state to increase tourism awareness, most notably the hotel and motel tax. We ask that the senators continue to consider investment in infrastructure throughout the state so that we can easily make sure that vehicles can come and go throughout our state and access all of our tourism venues. And then finally, we just ask that you all continue to support us as the #1 state to do business with great pro-business policies and continuing to keep our state safe so that places like Lanier Islands can continue to operate and thrive. So with that, I just want to say thank you again to the committee. Thank you all to the public for your interest in this. Senator Eccles, thank you again for the opportunity. And with that, I'll take any questions that you all have. Thank you.
Y'all have any questions? You good? He answered them all. I know that. Get him. Get him. Frank's promoting the Georgia Bulldogs.
There you go. I'll do a Go Dogs.
Well, one of the reasons, so you guys have some background as to why I asked Matt to come speak is I'm intrigued by the authority deal. And, you know, does the state of Georgia, do we need more authorities? Is that something we need to look at? He mentioned over and over again about the public-private partnership. And they, you know, clearly this is a success story here in the state of Georgia. And I just appreciate what they do. I appreciate how hard the family and all the staff works at Lake Lanier Islands, but also appreciate what LIDA does for them and works with them. It's just a great partnership. So thank you, Matthew, for coming and presenting. We're going to take notes on that and go back and watch the game film, and we'll break it down and dissect it. So we appreciate you.
Thank you all very much.
All right, at this time, we've got a longtime friend coming up to speak, Mr. J. Mark Walter. He's with the Georgia Department of Economic Development, known Jay probably 20 years. He's going to give us an update on tourism in the state of Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you, Senators, and thank you, Chairman Eccles, for this opportunity. Also want to say welcome and hello to many, many partners. Quite a turnout from as far as Thomasville and LaGrange and Macon, and I see a lot of industry partners, not just Visitor Bureau partners. So grateful for the attendance and appreciate the placement on the first agenda. Because my goal for you is to give you a sort of state of Georgia tourism, to give you the landscape as you start your tour and listening tour for this study committee. I am always grateful to be in Hall County and Gainesville and Lanier Islands Resort, and also appreciate the hospitality last night, seeing some of the new facilities and the great work of Lanier Islands. J. Mark Walter with the Department of Economic Development, Tourism Division, known to travelers and consumers as Explore Georgia. I have been with the department a year and a half and had the pleasure of serving as director of your co-host for this event, the Georgia Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, for the last 5.5 years, GACVB. Lots of acronyms in our industry. I grew up in Savannah, so still have some salt water in my veins. And Senator Ginn, I spent 20 years at Camp Bulldog. So go Dogs. And not all 20 years were undergrad, I promise. As I got into economic development, the arts and creative economies, and through Gwinnett County and 3 years up in Dahlonega, Georgia. And I know Senator Gooch is here, where I had an opportunity to work with him in Lumpkin County, live in Augusta, Georgia now, and moved there to work for that Visitors Bureau before statewide work. And I'm going to jump right in and tell you about what we're doing at the department, our mission, as well as the great team there, as we are, as you know, having some trouble with the thank you. Advance. Should be able to just. Set. Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. So who we are. Of course, we are the sales and marketing arm for the state of Georgia. And as one of the divisions, of course, international trade, global commerce, counselor for the arts and film and center of innovation. Also very excited that we're going to highlight some of these other divisions at the Governor's Tourism Conference coming up in September. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But who we are, again, is the division. known to the traveling public as Explore Georgia. Our mission is very simple. We are inspiring travel to and within the state of Georgia. And our goal is to implement all of those marketing programs with our partnerships across the state, with our industry. Many of are in the room here today. And a lot of our colleagues are very familiar with this phrase, but the economic importance of tourism being absolutely, we are importing temporary taxpayers. Tourism imports temporary taxpayers. And that spending in all of our communities supports and sustains small businesses, the visitor economy for our local economies. And it extends well beyond the core hospitality and transportation sectors. And of course, as our overnight guests invest their tax dollars, our organizations across the state, public, private, attractions, our visitor bureaus, they are keeping that economic engine going. Direct impact, indirect supply chains, induced spending of our employees across Georgia. Here is our regional team covering 159 counties, have over 500 cities in Georgia. Marcy Kicklighter is here with us today. Marcy, where are you? Marcy is new to our team this year, covering regions 1, 2, and 5. If you are here from those regions and do not know Marcy, please grab Marcy while we're here through the luncheon together. But you'll see our team here. We have over 50 years of experience with this team covering the region. Some have been with us as many as 20 years. And then, of course, Marcy being new to our team. And they are assisting with resources and tools, all of our partners across the state, because our travel in Georgia is not just leisure-based. People are traveling for sports, as you know, business, what we call in sales, the Smurf market, social, military, education, religious, fraternal, associations, having meetings and conventions in great facilities like this boathouse. And the meetings and conventions segment, by the way, is critical, drawing 16.3 million domestic visitors to Georgia for meetings and convention travel, with a $4.3 billion impact in spending. How are we also welcoming our front mat to Georgia on our interstates? Millions of visitors through the doors of our visitor information centers, our VICs. We have 9 VIC managers with 96 years of combined experience working in these visitor centers. These are DOT owned. We operate the information side of these buildings. With part-time and full-time employees, we have over 54 team members working in these centers. They do not get the vacations that we get. And while we don't have beaver nuggets and brisket, we can book you a hotel room. And as we know, especially from Senator Eccles telling a story on his family last night, people do travel without a hotel room. You would be surprised what this hardest working team in the business gets asked at these front desks and these counters. These are free services. We also have some marketing opportunities where our partners can extend their marketing in these centers for us. But our 9 centers that outline the state, we have over 600 average pieces of collateral and brochures and magazines and pieces of promoting all of our partners in all of these centers. We know from travel research that if visitors are coming up through I-75 or they're coming up I-95, they're probably headed, if they're coming through Valdosta, Lake Park, they're headed to Ellijay. They're headed to the mountains of Georgia. And that's how we do all of our strategies based on the visitor-driven research. And here are the numbers. These are our 2023 numbers because in the governor's conference in September, Governor Kemp will announce our 2024 numbers each year. So for 2023 numbers, you'll see domestic visitation, the international And I will elaborate on our international efforts. You'll see the year-over-year 43% increase. And then we're very proud about the number 5 market share for the 4th year in a row domestically. And what is this all about? The state and local tax revenue generated, over $5 billion. And you see the visitor spend. Total economic impact, nearly $80 billion industry for the state of Georgia, supporting 463,000+ jobs, 463,000 jobs in the state of Georgia. Speaking of international, I love this photograph because, as you know, one of our great assets in Columbus, Georgia, right there on the Chattahoochee, the longest urban whitewater rafting course in the world. And they have also just announced that they are going to be the international stage for freestyle kayaking, hosting the world there as a major event. We can break this down. And since we're in North Georgia with you, even though we have statewide partners in the room, we wanted to show, since we're here in Hall County, across North Georgia, in that region, the $4 billion visitor spending that happens across these regions. And you'll see how we break that down. Of course, food and beverage, our travelers love to eat and drink, and of course, our lodging and other segments there. We know that travelers are traveling from region to region. You'll see here, nearly 16% to Metro Atlanta also came up here to North Georgia, cross-visitation. We are able, and we do, distribute these regional numbers as well as county by county numbers to all of our tourism partners across the state. Marcy and the team of regional managers are supporting each. We can give each of our counties their information from our research and tools. Many of you are familiar with the Georgia Travel Guide, 500,000 pieces. The guide this past year had the Toccoa Falls on the front cover, has been very popular. We have a 4-tabbed version this year where the 4 covers highlighting what we know that our visitors, their interests are our cities, our mountains, our small towns, and our beaches. So it's been very popular this year. Our city was Columbus for this edition, small town of Covington, and for beaches, we had Sapelo Island this year. And the new guide is in production. We can't wait for you to see it. But we distribute these magazines not only with many partners in the room, but also at our state welcome centers, our state visitor centers, and then through direct mail as well. This guide is not just a pay-to-play guide. We have over 100 Georgia destinations represented in this year's piece. And we unveil that early in the year. We launched them in December so travelers can be making their travel plans, but we launched this, unveiled this there with the governor's office, and we're excited again about next year, the new guide that's in production now. Across our integrated marketing, our print, digital, on-site, you'll see the numbers here. Our website performs extremely well, exploregeorgia.org, and then we certainly hope that you receive our Peach Bite and our newsletters, and you subscribe to our department's newsletters through Explore Georgia. Just to give you some of the examples of our digital and print advertising, we're about in the 5th year now of performing. Our campaign of Ready, Set, Georgia is, and we just got a report actually this week, performing extremely well across channels. And you'll see again, this is the theme here of mountains, coast, small town, our beaches, carrying that theme throughout our marketing. We have a terrific comms team as well. Our PR team, we work hard at getting that earned media, all that we can get in the PR. And here's a great example from an international. So this was Journey Magazine, where our team helped, and we're promoting here Swamp to Sea, right? So this is Amicalola. Not Amicalola, Okefenokee and Cumberland Island were part of this story. And of course, our friends in the UK and Europe, they love to hear us talk about our attractions from Amicalola to Okefenokee to Ocmulgee Mounds, and they like for us to share all the great natural resources that we have as well. Through our Explore Georgia website, we encourage our partners to keep all of their information up to date, help us help them. This is an example here of Cartersville. Bartow County does a great Cartersville Museum City, does an excellent job of keeping just one example of many of our partners through our web. We sit on the board of the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. We have 11 sites currently with the U.S. Civil Rights Trail from Albany to Atlanta to Liberty County, and we are very excited. We worked with the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau and were able to, for 2025, excited that the application for the Madam C.J. Walker Museum and WERD Studio in Atlanta made the list for 2025 for us to be able to add that as a new site on the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. Sports tourism. Right here in this lake behind me, I learned that from January to March, senators, 17 to 20 colleges come here to row 900 rowers. And they are hosting Division I, II, and III NCAA championship rowing right here on Lake Lanier, right here outside of this glass behind me. Did I get that right, Robin? Okay. I thought you might share that, so had to share that. We offer and invest in this sports tool because sports is such a big impact that this software allows our partners to assess their communities for their capabilities to host sports. Also, there is a scout program that is a platform for them to match tournaments rights holders. So we provide this for free to all of our partners to try to attract and recruit sports events to their communities. I mentioned the industry newsletter. Again, I certainly hope as one of our tools that you subscribe to our Peach Bite and receive the industry newsletters as partners. And then we have a portal. Some of the numbers and research that I've showed with you, we offer this to our partners across the state in the industry for our research and resources, tools. And then I mentioned the extranet, where we have to ask all of our local partners to help us keep all of their information updated, their events, restaurants, accommodations, so that we can help elevate their voice, bolster their promotional efforts for all of our visitor-driven marketing strategies. And our team does not just go and speak to civic events and send information. We actually go into the communities as well. And you'll see here, this is a recent, Marcy, who is with us here today. This is a photograph of one of the largest regional gatherings where she was assisting them and diving into the extranet and the tools and resources so that they could also update their information and promote. Georgia 250. So US 250 and of course our Georgia 250 Commission, our Commissioner Pat Wilson and Chief Marketing Officer Mark Juronsky were appointed and serve on the Georgia 250 Commission commissioned by Governor Kemp. This is led by and the Georgia Historical Society and Georgia Humanities are running point for Georgia 250. And this is not about one 4th of July, one Independence Day. This is about a year-long celebration, Georgia 250. One example of something fun that we had the opportunity to participate and assist was the Good Morning America. Good Morning America did a Georgia spotlight of 50 states in 50 weeks, America the Beautiful. And so our communications team, our team helped with highlighting some of the music, film, sports, agriculture, outdoor adventure across the state. And we supplied some of those facts, images, video footage. But Savannah played a major role. So as part of that segment, Good Morning America went live from Savannah down there in the River Street district, and the Girl Scouts of America were featured as the birthplace of their founder and highlighted a century-long impact on lives. And that's just one example of how local communities can celebrate 250 years of history. We certainly have a lot of great revolutionary assets, especially Georgia State Parks along the coast and our forts and from Augusta to Savannah and others. But it is about the year-long and the full 250 years. The FIFA World Cup, the Atlanta Sports Council, and certainly giving updates. We'll be giving legislative updates and even an official update from them at our governor's conference. So I will just say, with the coming of the largest sporting event in history, as you may know, there will be 8 matches, including a semifinal. What we are promoting is Georgia having unmatched connectivity, competitive travel costs, renowned hospitality, and our diverse experiences statewide, that we are the ultimate home base for this. That our travelers and fans will be looking to make the most out of the World Cup experience, and that's exactly how we're promoting the whole state. So just to share some of what we are doing for FIFA, we took the show on the road, on the international market, on the global stage to Chicago. This is the U.S. Travel Association's key industry trade show. We had the largest Georgia group attend ever, representing every region in Georgia. And we basically were able to highlight each region with each of these partners. You'll see here we did an activation on the trade floor because of the World Cup coming to Georgia. Had a lot of fun with this. Other states were asking us how we did this. And we have several partners in the room that participated in that. You'll see here, for example, here is Macon promoting their music heritage in Ocmulgee National Historical Park. The Macon team hard at work. There were 65 countries visiting with us for these appointments. You'll see here Augusta, DeKalb. Again, there's Ellijay, Gilmer County. Barnsley was represented there by Cartersville. So we had several days of appointments. I love this one photograph here because it shows all the groups hard at work. And then one of the highlights to share for this year is we had South Georgia as a collective group. You'll see the photograph on the right. South Georgia was there representing over 15 different partners. And they had Dublin and Perry and Thomasville and Statesboro there as their spokespersons to be at this table meeting. You'll see here with a travel agent tour operator here. And they put together an entire South Georgia detours. Great story to tell, great example for our other communities. And we're excited about next year, which will be in Fort Lauderdale. But we were able to absolutely push at this trade show in Chicago for making Georgia, where we launched the campaign, your home base if you are joining us for the FIFA World Cup. I'll end with a couple of things here for you about the campaign that we're doing for FIFA World Cup. And in addition to our year-long efforts, we are running an online advertising campaign, but also a UK-based outdoor campaign until the draw happens in December, where the teams will be announced and the countries, and we'll know who's finally coming in December. This was a partnership with Brand USA, who is the nation's Visitors Bureau, and they were able to match our dollars, which is why we focused on the partnership with them in the UK and London. And here this is, and I have a lapel pin for each of you, senators. This is our Make Yourself at Home in Georgia with the peach soccer ball. This was so well received, hanging from the ceiling and on the trade floor for 2026 is our campaign. We will be running high impact transit, rail, billboard, outdoor. This is our out of home marketing effort in the UK, London focused. These are their interstate billboards. And then of course in rail stations, we have over 125 of the digital sheets we're so excited that Visit Savannah, Visit Ellijay, pick Ellijay, excuse me, and DeKalb, Discover DeKalb are the 3 partners that opted to do this with us. And then on our digital campaign, we have 8 different partners from across the state that have taken that opportunity to invest with us. This is an example. This is inspirational, high funnel decision, brand awareness. This is make yourself at home, what an image might look like. This is a mock-up, not the official Savannah image, but an example of this partnership as we are promoting the state of Georgia in the UK. Raise your hand if you are coming to Savannah to the Governor's Conference in September. Great, thank you. We hope that all of you will be with us. It is September 24 to 26, a Wednesday to Friday this year. We will be having, of course, general sessions. The official FIFA committee will give an update there. We will have workshops. We will also be having an opportunity to highlight, again, our other divisions. And it's my understanding that your second committee meeting will be that week. So we will be at the newly expanded Savannah Convention Center. And we look forward to seeing all of you there. And of course, we host our joint House and Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism, Frank. And we will have that again this year, right before the governor's luncheon. So I will close with, as you know, tourism is part of our economic development strategy. Tourism not only involves sightseeing and business travel, it involves film producers, event planners, potential residents, long-term tourism, supporting all the jobs, attracting investments that bolster our state and local economies. That money, that visitor dollar is pure economic development, cash coming in from outside our communities and spent locally. Our assets, our amenities, the uniqueness of Georgia's destinations, all the development that happens through our partners make our places attractive for business recruitment, for economic development. And as you know, our companies in the #1 state to do business, they're looking at that quality of life, the culture of our communities, those visitor assets that guests enjoy, the workforce and families that will be coming with their companies. So outside of the facility sites, utilities, incentives, in business recruitment, we know that tourism is a major part of our economic development strategy. So thank you for the opportunity again. Thank you for listening. We appreciate the time.
Thank you, Jay. I think we do have a couple questions here for you. Saw Senator Goodman writing down a few right here. That's a lot of information, and we appreciate everything you and your team do. Senator Goodman, you want to ask a few questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just writing some questions down here as you're talking, and I don't know the answers to these questions, but I'm curious to know. But the first question is, where do we rank in comparison to our surrounding states in state investment in tourism, like on a per capita basis? Do you know the answer to that? I always like to look at what states around us are doing, because we're competing honestly against them for those dollars.
So I do not have the breakdown list in front of me of the other states' investment. I do know that our partners at U.S. Travel Association have that information and survey the other states. I know that it varies, and it's not apples to apples. For example, South Carolina's tourism department manages their state parks, which we do not through Department of Economic Development. We have various partnerships where we distribute their materials. Our budget is $11.8 million for tourism department, and the marketing portions of that are $5.3 million. So those are our numbers. I do not have that breakdown in front of me of the other Southeastern or even national comparisons from U.S. Travel.
So I just want to make sure this is right. I'm an ag guy. We're #1 industry, but you guys are like right behind us. the second largest industry in the state. We're spending $5.3 million on marketing. Is that correct?
That is the marketing portion of our budget.
Okay. My next question is, do you have any idea where we rank in tourism dollars coming into the state versus surrounding states per capita?
Coming into the state, I would, other than that total economic impact, which again is direct, indirect, induced of the near 80 billion, collectively, it would be really this room of partners, visitor bureaus that are collecting the lodging tax, the hotel motel tax that would have those numbers. The Department of Community Affairs has those numbers on how much lodging tax is coming into city halls across Georgia.
Okay. Do you have any idea what percentage of the state's sales tax comes from out-of-state visitors?
We have the near five. No, sir. No, sir. I mean, I have the earlier number, and I don't have it back on the screen, but the nearly 5 billion in state and local tax. Yes, sir.
My final question is, do we have any idea how much of, or what percentage of our tourism dollars that take place in our state happen in our rural counties? Say a county is less than 50,000 people. Do we have any, do we keep any kind of metrics on that as far as are the rural counties, whether they be in North Georgia or South Georgia? Obviously, you know, we don't have Six Flags in some of our rural counties in North Georgia and South Georgia, or Disney World or anything else, but I'm curious to know, you know, how much our rural counties are benefiting, you know, with tourism continuing to grow, in the state. Is that rising tide lifting all ships in terms of the rural counties?
Yes, I would say it definitely is. And we have that information by county. So we have on all 159 counties, we have the economic impact of travel and tourism, even down to what it's saving each household per year, offset by those visitor tax dollars. So we do have that by county. And then as I showed earlier, we have it by region, by the 5 regions, North, Central, Metro, Coast, South, that we can also provide. Yes.
So,
And of course, our state parks are absolutely drivers in a lot of those gateway communities.
and final question. If we're spending $5.3 million on marketing in the state of Georgia, do we have any idea what we're spending in the surrounding states are spending in their marketing budgets?
Again, I know the U.S. Travel has that, but as we look across all of those other states, those numbers aren't always just on their ad buys or media strategies, because we're all set up differently. Every state is structured differently in what they manage.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mark Orto,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your presentation. My esteemed colleague from Cogdale, Georgia, really wants to follow up on that. Maybe you just get that together for our next meeting and we can share that data. I hate to throw all those questions to you cold, but thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Don't work him out too hard, Russ.
Yeah, I really don't know the answers to the questions. That's what I'm asking.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jay. That was, like I said, very interesting. We look forward to seeing you in Savannah.
Thank you.
I think Russ may have given you a little bit, Senator Goodman may have given you a little homework, I guess. I don't know. But listen, we appreciate that.
Sure.
And it means a lot. It means a lot to every corner of this state. And so thank you for what you do. Thank you for what your team does. So good job.
Thank you.
We're going to take it. Okay. We're going to take a 10-minute break here, and then we're going to move on to our next speaker. So y'all run to the restroom, grab your water, and we'll get back in 10 minutes. All right, guys, we're going to get started in just about 2 minutes. Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it. All right, guys, we're going to get back started. Yeah, you got to mark over. Like it. I like it. You told me to. I like it. I like it. But I fit on the map. We should know. We absolutely should know. And this can get deeper. It's going to take. All right, guys, we've got another great speaker coming up after the break here. Jeff Payne is a friend of mine. Dr. Payne was a former eye doctor and eye surgeon, been a long time family friend. turned developer and now has embarked in the tourism industry, developing hotels and other projects, not just here in Gainesville, Hall County, but across the entire state. I remember our girls went K through 12 together, and Jeff was always intrigued by people coming to our business and paying money to walk through a corn maze. And I was able to sell that same ticket to the next person, and they walked out to the parking lot, and you were really just selling them an experience. You really wasn't selling them anything, just an experience. And Jeff was intrigued by that, and so I helped him get started in his tourism. I planted the seed, no pun intended, to get him started in his tourism, his hotel development and resort development. He's going to come up and talk to us about navigating issues across the state, from North Georgia all the way down to the coast, some issues that he sees arising, and we just appreciate him being here. Jeff, thank you.
Thank you, Drew. I'll start out by telling you three things that I'm not. I'm not a public speaker, I'm not a politician, and I don't have an assistant. So you'll see that reflected in my slides today. Yeah, as Drew said, I actually was a practicing physician for about 30 years. And during that time, we developed medical office buildings, initially for ourselves, then for others, from Brazelton to Clayton across Northeast Georgia. And we'd acquired a site in in downtown Gainesville, about 2 acres with an old bank building on it, and trying to decide what to do with it, and decided to turn that into a hotel and an apartment building and a mixed-use development. And a lot of people thought that I was crazy, but hopefully some of you stayed there last night and realized that it really was a needed thing for Gainesville. It's been a great asset to our tourism. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to be a local guy who does some projects in Gainesville and around the state. You all have already teed this up for me. We all have talked about tourism being Georgia's second largest industry, just behind agriculture. And its economic impact at about $80 billion is virtually identical to all of manufacturing in Georgia. You asked earlier about rural tourism versus urban tourism. These were the numbers that I could find. Rural tourism is about $2.3 billion a year, pretty equal between lodging and food, whereas urban tourism is more in the $30+ billion range. But a lot of that is transportation, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. But if you take that out, it's still pretty even between food and lodging. But, it points out that, the vast majority of our state is rural, but most of the tourism dollars are going to the larger cities like Atlanta, Savannah. And those rural towns have some assets like historical sites, recreational sites, agricultural sites that would benefit from tourism, but they may not have the infrastructure or the knowledge of how to get those assets there. Why does it help government to support tourism? Well, an average hotel, and I'm talking about 120, 130 room hotel, will produce between sales tax, hotel motel tax, the $5 nightly state hotel fee, and alcohol taxes, about $1 million a year in taxes that don't exist. And that doesn't include the property taxes. And the reason I left that out is sometimes we'll get a tax abatement for a few years, or money will go to TAD to help pay for the project. So I just totally left that out. But that's about $1 million a year for every hotel project that comes into the state. The state hotel fee is $5 a night. And for the last 10 years, it's generated an average of $176 million a year. So that's 30 million hotel rooms that are bought in the state of Georgia by most of those people from out of state. And that money goes to transportation. Tourism provides jobs and benefits like healthcare, 401k, and they produce little burden on the communities like the schools. Local governments have some resources that they can provide, coupled with some state resources to help tourism. One is a TAB, which is a tax allocation district, where a certain area of a town is committed to returning the increase in property taxes to the development to help with infrastructure and project development. They're up to about 12 to 15% of the cost. There are also these pilot agreements, payment in lieu of taxes, where they negotiate some sort of a tax reduction for a few years to help fund the construction of a project. We're working on one of those with the city of Gainesville, where we're building a new downtown hotel, but we have to construct a parking deck to support it. And parking decks are really expensive. So they're helping us, the city of Gainesville, the school system, the Hall County, working together to make that project happen. The state has an empowerment zone project where certain communities that are economically disadvantaged can reduce the property taxes for new industries. They can waive fees such as water and sewer hookup fees, inspection fees, zoning fees. And there's a sales tax increment that goes back into that district to help provide infrastructure. So that's a great project that the state has brought forward. There's state job tax credits. Depending upon the economic success of the area, those may range from $1,500 a year to $3,500 a year. And those last for 5 years. And they either go back to your state income tax or they reduce the withholdings that are paid by the business to help them with some cash flow. And finally, the last one is a federal program, the Federal Opportunity Zones. And those are more helping the investor on a long-term strategy. If they hold the property for 10 years, when they sell, there's no capital gains tax on any profit that they might make. But a lot of the opportunity zones are in areas that you may not make a profit because they're economically disadvantaged. That's the whole point of them being there. So you're taking a risk to invest in those areas. But not all Georgia cities really are aware of these incentives, or they're educated in how to use them. And some are really not interested in incentivizing tourism. But I think that educating those communities and what's available to them for development would really be beneficial. And I want to talk about a little bit about Gainesville, where we live. I consider them a proactive community. They really are supportive and have been very helpful in working with us as developers. They are willing to listen and work together to come up with innovative solutions. Like right now, we're working with the city on a grant from the Appalachian Regional Commission, and that helps to provide some infrastructure for downtown areas. And it's a matching grant, so if the Appalachian Regional Commission provides $500,000, somebody else has to put up the 500. So we're working with the city and we're funding part, they're funding part to get some things done downtown for infrastructure. So they've been very great to work with. It's been a wonderful experience working here in Gainesville and Hall County, but not every community is like that. Some of them have documented hotel room shortages. They have no incentive for construction. They make the zoning process difficult. It's almost like they really don't want you to come there. So it's nice to be in an area that really is supportive and helpful. And that's why we're about to build 3 more projects here in Gainesville, because they are supportive and helpful in making the projects work. One of the things that is really helpful in tourism are historic tax credits, because a lot of the towns, particularly a lot of the smaller towns, have a lot of historic buildings in their downtown that can benefit from these credits. The federal tax credit is 20%, and it's 4% yearly for 5 years. The state has a credit that's 25%, and that's a full credit, but it may take a few years to get it because they have a cap of so much per year. So you might apply this year, might not get funded for 2 more years. And then there's a preferential property tax assessment where if you buy a building for $1 million and you're going to put another $1 million or $2 million into it, your assessment is at that $1 million level for the next 8 years, and it gradually works up to market value. But those tax incentives really help a developer to do things in areas that they might not otherwise be able to do it, and to build a better product than they would be able to use without them. We're also working in South Carolina, and I want to share a couple of things that they do that I think are interesting. They have an abandoned building credit. So if you go into a building that's been vacant for 5 years and you invest money into it, you can get a 25% tax credit. It doesn't have to be historic, it just abandoned. If you improve it and make it usable for a business, you get that credit. There's also a textile mill credit where if a building was associated with an old textile mill, whether it's the mill itself or an administrative building or a gym, those qualify for a 25% credit. Now, you can't stack those two credits together. It's one or the other, but you can get about 70% of your costs through tax credits for certain projects over there. So just something that I want to make you aware of. Now, I want to share a couple of historic tax credit projects with you, one that we've done and one that we're working on. You can see this building is downtown Gainesville. It's 35,000 square feet, and it was just really run down and neglected, very underutilized. And that whole area was just sort of dark at night. So we decided to acquire that, and we use it for meeting space for the hotel. And it has 2 restaurants in it. Now we're adding another restaurant and a boutique to it in the next couple of months as they're building those spaces out. But you can see on the left, it's sort of run down and dilapidated. On the right, we've cleaned it up. We've gotten rid of the power poles, put new lights and widened the sidewalk to make it more attractive to people to come down there at night. This is what it looked like inside when we purchased it. And that's what we see now. The top right is the interior of the meeting space for the hotel. It's also used for community events. The upper left one here is a barbecue restaurant in North Georgia Barbecue. They've got locations in Cleveland and Blairsville. And then the bottom is a place called Decoy, which is an entertainment facility. We realized there wasn't anything to do in downtown after dark. So we had duck pin bowling, high-tech putt-putt, and golf simulators for people to come and eat and drink and have things to do. This is an interesting project that we're working on now, and you may recognize this if you're a Bulldog. It's the President's House at the University of Georgia. And they've decided to sell the house because the cost to maintain is just too much. Just to renovate the heating and air and electrical systems is about $3.5–4 million. So we have a contract to purchase that facility. It's a 5-acre site in downtown Athens. The historic tax credits would help refurbish this house, which we want to maintain as it is, and use it for restaurant and common areas for a hotel that we want to construct behind the house. And this shows you what that may look like if we get the zoning for the project. It'll be very similar to the hotel. In the lower left, you can see the original house there. There's a U-shaped building that will house about 116 guest rooms, and maintaining the bulk of the property as it is for gardens and the historic nature of it. Parking will be underground, and people will be able to walk to downtown Athens for the events and to the football stadium. So that's something that we're working on now. But just to give you an idea, the historic tax credits on the house are about $2 million. The whole project is about $50 million. So it's not paying for the whole thing, just a little bit of it to maintain the house. And from our perspective, the hotel generates the revenue to maintain the house in perpetuity so that you can continue to keep that as something that we can all be proud of and part of our history. The final thing I want to talk about is the tourism tax credit. And that's a state program where if you build a new tourism facility that costs over $1 million and 25% of the people from out of state, you get the incremental increase in sales tax back for a period of 10 years, up to 25% of your project cost. And there are things, very strict criteria of what qualifies for that. I won't read them all to you, but cultural sites, convention hotels, golf courses, marinas, and I'm not sure what Georgia Crafts and Product Center is. Drew, you might educate me on that, but I don't know. For a convention center hotel, it has very specific requirements. You have to meet 6 of those, but the main thing, you've got to have, a certain amount of meeting space and a number of guest rooms. So we're working on a project on Lake Lanier here to bring a world-class 5-star hotel to Lake Lanier, like the Ritz-Carlton Lake Oconee. And this is just an example of the preliminary site plan. We're working with a company called Salamander, who would manage the property, and it's owned by Sheila Johnson, who was the founder of BET. And she does great properties, and they own one in Middleburg, which she did, that has a 5-star hotel, 5-star spa, 5-star restaurant. The only other facility in Georgia like that is at Sea Island. So that gives you an idea of what we want to achieve here in Gainesville. This is the resort from the back. There'll be some cottages along the lake. And this is a very early rudimentary drawing of the front of the resort. And this shows you from the back, what we want to achieve there. This is about $150 million project. And it's to get this credit is a very long process. First, you fill out a pre-application, and we initially were denied, just no reason, just denied. So I'm sort of persistent, so we applied again. And this time we got approval to go to the next step, which is the full application. It requires a lot of work. You have to pay a fee. There's feasibility study that we pay for that Georgia Tech or UGA does. Detailed budget, a lot of work go into producing this information. And finally, it has to be approved by the Commissioners of the Department of Economic Development and DCA. This should give you an idea of the tax generation and effect of this. And the bottom line is sort of on the end over here. And this comes from some work that was done by Salamander on a pro forma for us. But basically, it'll produce over those 10 years about a $36 million tax credit from the sales tax that are generated there. Currently, there's no sales tax produced there. But it also will generate over $40 million in tax for local government, state occupancy tax, education SPLOST, property tax that are currently not being produced. So it really helps the developer, but also helps the state and the local government as well by producing property taxes. So what I would recommend we do is consider, giving increased help to these small communities, consulting, educational services to help them learn what's at their disposal so they can help developers come and build things in their communities. I would advocate you eliminate the cap on historic tax credits so that those projects can move along a little faster. And finally, this may not be the right word, but depoliticize the tourism tax credit. The historic tax credit is by right. If you do these things, you're able to get this credit. But the tourism tax credit, you have to be approved to get it. So it's really not, I would say, fair in that regard. You've got to really work to get it done as opposed to provide a good product and by law be able to achieve that. Now, I sent another slide or two to them, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them since they're not up here. But I read an article in the Atlanta paper, and I don't believe everything I read in the Atlanta paper, but this was about the Rivian plant that's being talked about, and there's a lawsuit involved. But anyway, I wanted to look at how much we gave in credits and how much that produced in jobs. So it's a $5 billion plant, $1.5 billion credits, that's 30%. With this project we just talked about, it's $150 million investment and about a 25% tax credit. Per job, it's about $666,000 per job at Rivian, $600,000 for a tourism job. When you look at that in salary, the average salary at Rivian is supposed to be $25, $30 an hour, so about $60,000 a year. Some of these hospitality jobs pay $80,000, $100,000 a year because they have a good salary, but they also get good tips. So I just wanted to let you think about those numbers a little bit in regard to economic development. I'm certainly not saying we shouldn't do manufacturing, but I just think there are other things that we could support as well. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate that. He really has. He's done a lot for this part of the world and bring up a lot of interesting points. Anybody got any questions? Senator Goodman's got a question.
Just a quick question. Now, on the historic tax credit, you're talking about eliminating the cap. What is the cap now, and how long has it been since it's been changed?
I think they increased in the last few years, and I couldn't tell you the exact number.
30 million.
Okay.
And I was going to also ask, I know in my district, there's been some question of trying to add a $5 local fee to try to generate revenue to be able to invest in the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's been some, I guess, a little anxiety from our hoteliers in the area. In your experience, when I go somewhere, I don't really pay attention to what the tax is. You know, I get a room and hope it's in a, you know, nice place. Have you seen in your, you know, obviously you have a long work history in dealing with this sector of the economy, adding a $5 hotel tax, because at the end of the day, if you invest more money in your convention center, then hopefully you're gonna get more people to come stay. And, you know, I'm just curious what your thoughts were.
I don't think that that's a big issue. People do complain about a parking fee, but they really don't complain about the tax. In fact, we're going to probably, if we get this Athens project approved, are going to add a preservation fee of $5 or $10 a night to each room to help preserve the historic house.
Thank you.
Senator Jones.
Question and concerns, tax credit. How attractive are tax credits when it comes to investors looking at particular projects? And is there a secondary market for these tax credits to be converted to some kind of liquidity?
Yeah, I think depends on the project. Some projects really don't make any sense without the tax credit. Then others, you know, are in an area where you can get a high return, a high room rate or whatever, so you don't need it as much. But I do think that they can make the difference between an okay project being a really good project, and it makes it more attractive from an investor return. There is a secondary market to sell the credits. Some people use that as their equity to do the project. So they need those credits to be the equity. We don't use that model. We retain the credits ourselves because when you sell them off, you do take a haircut on them because they have to make money as well. The buyer does. But they do help a lot of people do projects they couldn't afford to do otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've got another speaker coming up. We've got Mr. Tyler Rainegall. He's going to come speak to us and talk to us about budgets, comparisons across the country, over the Southeast, and return on investment of our tourism marketing dollars. Y'all welcome, Mr. Tyler.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Tyler Reinagle. I wasn't going to go down this road, but since everybody else has done it, I will give a shout out for the University of Georgia as a triple dog. So go dogs. But I am here in my capacity as the Director of Research and Policy for the Council of State Governments Southern Region. I am a native Georgian, but we do serve 15 states across the South. State of Georgia, a very active member in the organization. We are a nonpartisan, not-for-profit 501c3 doing work in leadership development, policy research, and programming for all three branches of state governments across all 15 of our states. Proud to say that we held our Southern Legislative Conference, and Senator Halpern, who happens to be my state senator, sat on our policy plenary session and a really great discussion about state budgets. But we do have 4 regions. Our region includes the entire South, everything from Missouri down to Texas, over to Florida, and up to our friends in Virginia and West Virginia. We've been around about 100 years and happy to be a part of this conversation and discuss tourism. A little bit of background on myself, in addition to being a native Georgian and triple dog. I actually started working in this arena about a decade ago as the Director of Planning and Research with the State Department of Community Affairs. A wonderful role and a wonderful time working with colleagues in state government, and got to know and do hotel motel tax training for I think about half this room over the course of that period of time, and developed some really great friendships and partnerships that I never knew I would have, but certainly treasure and value moving forward. So a little bit of background on our team. We work within 6 different policy committees, doing research on everything from education and energy to economic development and transportation and tourism, as we're discussing here today. And certainly are available for any information requests. And I know, Senator Goodman, you had a few questions we'll get through today, but any subsequent questions, of course, happy to have me and my team pull that information together so that this committee can make informed recommendations moving forward to make sure that Georgia tourism continues to grow and thrive as an industry. So today I'm going to talk about really 5 key questions when we think about the Southern region and tourism and what we're doing here in Georgia. First, is it worth making the investment? I think everybody, by virtue of being in this room, has the same answer to that question, but we'll get into a little bit more detail on that. Second, looking at how tourism is organized across other states across the South. We heard from Jay, and he's an absolutely remarkable leader for Explore Georgia and our tourism office. But just to get context, we'll look at some of the other states in the southern region. Next, how do we fund tourism in Georgia? And this is a critical question, and I've had conversations in mercifully every corner of the state. We've got folks wanting to know, how do we fund tourism? How do we do it most effectively? How do we do it most efficiently and impactfully, to make sure that folks know what great assets we have from the mountains to the coast and every point in between. Fourth, going to look at mechanisms across the South. So how exactly is tourism being funded, not just at the state level, but also with our localities, many of whom are represented in the room here today. And then finally, kind of the threats and vulnerabilities that the industry has. Everyone in this room felt impacts about 5 years ago, but there are a lot of areas where we need to be cognizant of where we set ourselves up for potential losses and potential hits from that tourism industry. So that first question, is tourism worth the investment? Short answer, yes. And these are numbers that have been consistent for Georgia and really show the impact of the folks in this room who lead that tourism industry. 257,000 jobs across the state directly related to tourism, another 250,000 jobs indirectly related to that. So those industries that are reliant on visitors coming into the state. So the number of jobs that it has for Georgians is really incredible and growing every year, and look forward to seeing Jay's numbers that come out at the Governor's Tourism Conference later this year. Second, it provides tax relief for our residents. We've looked at some of those tax revenue dollars when we've got folks coming from outside of Georgia spending money in Georgia, whether that's on hotel rooms, on food, on golf courses, whatever. This very expensive master's tie that I picked up in Augusta, they're paying sales tax on that. That's money that's coming back into local option sales tax, into SPLOST funds across the state. Our school districts reap the benefit of eSPLOST spending. So that's money that Georgia residents and citizens are not having to pay when we've got those sales taking place. And as you see there, in fiscal year 2023, that was to the tune of over $35 billion in tourism spending. And then lastly, infrastructure support. We've heard the term tourism product development. That's the brick and mortar investments that we've got throughout the state. And those are assets not only to get visitors and tourists to come to Georgia, but also those that have secondary benefits for our own residents. When we look at things like park and trail networks and amphitheaters that are funded by these tourism dollars, those are for the benefit not only of visitors to our state, but also to us as residents and as Georgians. So looking at the dollar for dollar benefit that comes out of that, we see the aggregate impact on Georgia, but to break that down on a dollar by dollar level, every dollar invested in the tourism industry generates $122 in direct, indirect, and induced spending. So the multiplier effect on these tourism dollars is really remarkable and has that impact that, as I alluded to before, benefits Georgians and really reduces that tax burden on citizens and residents paying other taxes. Similar studies have indicated that every dollar invested is generating upwards of $8 in direct tax revenue. So that's income tax revenue that's being generated for employees. That's sales and use tax revenue, 4% of which is going into the state coffers. The rest of that going into the hands of our city and county officials and our school districts. So the $8 of direct tax benefit is really remarkable. And then, of course, the numbers that Jay shared earlier, $80 billion in Georgia-specific returns, including $5 billion in direct sales and use tax revenue for state and local governments. So the second question, how do we compare to other states when it comes to how tourism is organized? Jay mentioned that his role falls under the umbrella of the Georgia Department of Economic Development and GDEC, and that does tend to be the most common structure for state governments that we've got in the South. I will pause here. I think, Mr. Chairman, you had a question, or Senator again.
Thank you, Tyler. Let's back up 2 slides.
Absolutely.
That 35.4 billion, I believe, that Jeff had said something about 43 billion on his presentation. I see different numbers on that. And I always wonder, I said, okay, yeah, billion here, billion there. We're talking real money at some point. He said, why do I see such variations in that number?
So
how do we come up with that math and to compare apples to apples, as I like to say?
Absolutely. A great question. You do see different methodologies used to calculate that and the multiplier effects that go into it. I will say these numbers are the audited numbers from fiscal year 23. So they are a little bit dated. And I'm sure you could look at every community represented in the room here. So there was growth to fiscal year 24, and then fiscal year 25 just ended. But they're generally going to be in the same ballpark.
I think everybody was on 23. I'm not sure, but and that's where I see that difference, and I have to acknowledge there's a little difference in the math.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure that I can understand, okay, where do we really sit?
Yeah,
How
and-
do I ascertain that number?
Certainly. So the methodologies do get tricky. So if you're working with any economist, they're going to have different methodologies and how they calculate that economic impact and where they attribute these dollars to. If you see a really wide variation, that should raise a red flag and you should want to better understand the methodology behind it. But, you know, is $1 spent generating $7, $7.50, $8 in tax revenue? Obviously, when you start to multiply that by the billions, you do get some variation there, but generally you're going to see those numbers within a fairly narrow scope. There's no precision to it. If we were able to do all the transactions in crypto and track each dollar and where it was going from individual to individual and business to business, we'd be able to track it a lot better. But when you're spending money in the state, it's coming to the folks here in Gainesville and Hall County, then they're turning around and spending it at a restaurant. Somebody who gets that money from the restaurant turns around and spends it at the boutique downtown. You can't track the dollars in the same way, so there is some variation in that methodology, but generally speaking, they're going to be in a fairly narrow window.
Thank you for that. One of the other things I do want to, we talk about the $5 hotel motel tax. Most people also, I don't know what the numbers are across the state, but I think most people are probably paying an 8% fee. I don't know what y'all are seeing.
Most are at 8%. I actually get into that a little bit later.
Okay,
into
good.
that
Thank you very much.
yeah.
I'll let you go ahead.
It's as if you saw my presentation beforehand. So back to the organization of state tourism offices in the South. As I was saying before, the structure that we've got with GDEC and the Explore Georgia Tourism Division within the GDEC umbrella is the most common one that we see across the state. There are a couple of other models that exist. Our friends in Alabama, Tennessee, and Oklahoma have got standalone departments of tourism. I think Jay had mentioned earlier that in South Carolina, and I'll mention Oklahoma here as well, state parks are included in that tourism department. So it's structured a little bit differently in that ours are under that DNR umbrella. Our friends over in Texas have got a standalone office reporting directly to the governor. So not structured in the same way that state appropriations would be to a standalone department necessarily, but rather reporting directly to Governor Abbott out there in Texas. And then Florida, very unique. I'll leave that at that and say that they have got a public-private partnership. Visit Florida is their state destination marketing organization that acts as a standalone nonprofit recognized by the IRS, but does work in conjunction with the state government to promote the assets that they've got down on our southern border. Now, that structure, how does it relate to what we're talking about here in this room today and all of the communities that are represented in the room? So generally, the statewide tourism offices are very big picture. They're doing statewide branding and marketing. We saw that in the Ready, Set, Georgia campaign that's been remarkably successful in our state. Other states do very similar marketing campaigns at the state level. Providing technical assistance and research support. Jay has got a research team that provides a lot of really valuable information to local partners throughout the state. And the coordination of statewide assets. So when the World Cup comes to Georgia next year, that is a statewide effort. That is a statewide blitz, and Jay is very much steering that in the right direction. But the boots on the ground work is really with our local destination marketing organizations or DMOs across the state. These tend to be convention and visitors bureaus, many of whom are represented in the room here today. In some smaller communities, the Chamber of Commerce will serve that function, but by and large, these are 501c6 membership-driven nonprofit organizations. They're promoting their community, they're promoting the assets and the events that are taking place in their community, and generally are created, like I said, either as a standalone nonprofit organization or through local legislation coming out of the General Assembly. We do have a lot of those that are created. These organizations and the folks in this room today work very closely with Jay and his team, but ultimately they don't report up to that state tourism office. They're promoting the assets in their community. They've got a standalone board of directors, and they work in close consultation in conjunction with their city and county leadership to make sure that they're really doing everything they can to market and attract visitors to communities in every corner of Georgia. Senator Ginn, to your question earlier about hotel motel tax, this is a graphic that I'm sure causes a nervous twitch in a lot of folks who have sat through my tax training over the years in this room. But just to make sure that we're all talking about the same pot of money when it comes to how we're funding tourism. anytime you're staying at a hotel or a short-term rental in the state, you're paying that base fee, the number that you see there in the middle, $199, $249 a night, whatever the case may be. You're also paying the sales and use tax, and that's going to range anywhere from 6% to we're now up to 9% in a couple of our communities. That's the 4% that's coming into the state coffers. That's your local option sales tax, your SPLOST, your eSPLOST, T-SPLOST, whatever you may have as the menu of taxes at the local level in your city and county. That's the money that we're talking about there. That's not what is funding tourism per se. Bottom right is that $5 fee that we have talked about a couple of times today. Again, going into the state budget, not something that we're talking about here today and not funding tourism at the local level. What we're getting at is that bottom left corner, and that is anywhere from 2 to 8%, the locally imposed hotel motel excise tax. We're talking earlier, most communities in the state at this point have gone to the 8% tax, which is the highest amount that's allowed under state law. But we do have a number of communities still at those lower rates. So I won't go into too much detail on how the restrictions are built out for those tax, but it does get fairly complicated for communities. But ultimately, the first 3 pennies that are collected on that excise tax are unrestricted. This is a tax that dates back to the mid-1970s when Brunswick adopted it for the first time. The legislature at the time was very encouraging of that money to go toward tourism, but the first 3 pennies ultimately are unrestricted. It can be used by our city and county governments for any legal purpose. Anything above and beyond that 3% is restricted, and it's restricted in the tourism sphere. So that can include tourism promotion that goes for marketing and promotional campaigns by our CVBs. In some instances, it can go toward tourism product development, which are those brick and mortar assets, the amphitheaters, the convention centers, the park and trail networks that really make our communities more appealing and bring in more folks to enjoy our assets and to spend money. And those are incredible resources for our CVBs across the state and really empower them to do the tourism promotion that they're in the business of doing. So the funding is always a question that comes up. And I wanted to give just a handful of examples. And of course, me and my team are happy to pull additional if any members of the committee would like to look at particular states that we aren't talking about today. But down to our south in Florida, in addition to the state's 7% sales tax and any local sales tax that exists, local governments can impose up to a 7% bed tax, which is the equivalent of our hotel motel tax here in Georgia, intended to promote and advertise tourism in their state, and very much restricted in the same way that Georgia is to tourism promotion in the tourism industry. Head out I-20 to our neighbors in South Carolina. In addition to the state's 6% sales tax and local sales taxes that are there, there's an additional statewide 2% tax that ends up coming back to the local governments. There is a strict cap in our friends in South Carolina on how much the local governments are able to put back into their general fund. The rest of that, similar theme to what we see in Georgia and Florida, restricted to tourism and investments. North Carolina, very similar story. In addition to the state's 4.75 and any local sales and use taxes, anywhere from 3 to 8% hotel motel tax, the bed tax that they've got, that does get reinvested in tourism. A very interesting nuance about North Carolina, the spending of those excise tax dollars is at the local level. So these are city and county governments that are collecting these taxes at the local level, but it is tourism development authorities designated under their state law that make the decisions about how that money is spent. Those are broken out on what the composition of those is and what restrictions exist on those dollars. But ultimately, your city and county commissions and councils, they are not making those decisions directly. They've got industry professionals that make up these authorities that are making those determinations at the local level. So a few themes that we see across the South. There is a disparity between state and local governments. State governments in the South, by and large, are very empowering of cities and counties to make these decisions for themselves. They know what assets they've got to market. They know best how to sell their community and make it appealing. Second, there's a focus on driving tourism. In all of the southern states that have a lodging tax equivalent to what Georgia has, there is at least a portion of that revenue that is restricted and must be used for further tourism promotion and asset development. So there's a real emphasis on making sure that the money that's generated from tourism is being reinvested in the industry. Third, there's an increased focus in recent years on building brick and mortar assets. So it's not just about marketing campaigns, billboards, social media, whatever type of marketing a community deems most appropriate and most effective, but it's a lot of investment in brick and mortar assets, those stadiums, those amphitheaters, those conference centers, and in some smaller communities that may not have those large capital investments, even things as simple as parks, benches, trail networks, and wayfinding signage. So not all capital investments are Mercedes-Benz Stadium or the Savannah Convention Center. It's really going to be reflective of the community and where the priorities are for those local folks. Another theme we've got is local control. The locally DMOs are being determined by city councils, by county commissions throughout the state. They're working with the professionals in their community who know their community and who are going to be most effective in their role. And that leads to that last theme, which is really empowering industry professionals. The folks who understand tourism marketing, the folks who have made a career in that industry are the ones making decisions about how to invest and how to further drive tourism. It's not a city council, it's not a county commission that's making that decision, but they're working with industry professionals in their CVBs and in their chambers throughout the states. One thing I do want to put out there for discussion, just so everyone is aware, and I know a lot of folks in this room felt it firsthand 5 years ago when the pandemic hit. We did take a hit, and the tourism industry worldwide took a hit as a result of the pandemic. And this just kind of makes that real when you look at the numbers on how this affected two of our largest cities, the two largest generators of hotel motel tax in the state. City of Atlanta year-to-year revenue from fiscal year 19, which was the last full fiscal year pre-COVID, to fiscal year 2020 was off more than 36%. And the following year, when you look at the FY19 to FY21 comparison, almost 70% of the city of Atlanta's hotel motel tax revenue. I point out those different years because the fiscal year makes a difference here. City of Atlanta's fiscal year ended on June 30th, which meant the first 9 months of fiscal year 2020 were actually record-setting for the city of Atlanta. Travel was still booming from July 1st of 2019 through the end of February 2020. Then the bottom fell out. So you really see the full impact for the city of Atlanta there when you compare fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 21. Our friends down in Savannah, where Jeff is from, year over year with their fiscal year ending on December 31st, they saw an over 40% loss in their hotel motel taxes year over year. So there are real vulnerabilities in this industry. And when you see hits, these type of numbers really tell that story of how vulnerable they are. And this is not money that can just be made up for our CVBs and for our destination marketing organizations across the state. Interestingly enough, and I'm a data nerd, we did see some communities that had an increase year over year when COVID hit. A lot of those were coastal and mountain communities where folks realizing they could work remotely were camping out for months on end, not having to go into their offices in Atlanta or in the metro area. So there were some communities that saw an increase. And one thing I will point out here as well was July 1st of 2021 was the date that House Bill 317 went into effect. If you're not familiar with that, that created parity statewide for short-term rentals. Previously, any collections of the hotel motel excise tax on short-term rentals, your Airbnb, VRBO type properties, that was the onus of the local government. And the overwhelming majority of local governments in the state did not have the capacity to go out and police and collect that money. House Bill 317 in 2021 put the onus on the platforms to collect and remit that. So now all of our communities, all of our city and county governments that have an excise tax in place, they are getting those payments directly from the platforms where those properties are located. So that was a huge win for the industry and created parity that was much needed for those short-term rentals across the state. Some other vulnerabilities that exist there. I mentioned the economic sensitivity. Inflation and cost increases have been a real concern for the tourism industry and a lot of shifting priorities in terms of where visitors to our state are spending their money. Remote work continues to evolve, so understanding where folks are able to do their jobs and where they're spending the money, particularly if they're doing short-term rentals in different parts of the state. Regional competition for tourism dollars. We're always going to be working to get folks into Georgia, making the decision to come to Tybee Island instead of the beaches in Florida, making the decision to come to Blue Ridge instead of Asheville. We want to get them in Georgia. We want them spending money in Georgia, but we need to be cognizant of our neighbors and what they're doing to get those visitor dollars as well. And then moving forward, just a few observations, and thankfully I've had relationships with folks in this room for over a decade at this point, and these have really steered our conversation. Having honest assessment, refinement, and continuation of effective marketing. Consumer interests and consumer desires are always going to change and evolve. When you find something effective like the Ready, Set, Georgia campaign, it is incredibly impactful. It gets people to Georgia. We've seen the evidence of that, but keep continuing to be aware of that and how effective that is moving forward. Building state level awareness of local and regional assets and marketing campaigns. So knowing what's going on in Savannah, knowing what's going on in Brunswick and down at Jekyll Island, knowing what's going on in Thomasville, all of those are incredibly valuable tools and resources for us to have at the state level. Third, identification and support of high growth regions and visitor assets. We know that Jekyll Island has got a long and storied history and is one of the most beautiful places in our state. Let's make sure we're investing in that and making sure that folks from outside Georgia are aware of the beauty and splendor of Driftwood Beach that you see there in that photo. And then lastly, investments in infrastructure to enhance the visitors' experiences, regardless of their travel motives. If they're coming for a convention on Hutchinson Island in Savannah, making sure that we're rolling out the red carpet as Jeff and his colleagues down there do every day, making sure that the Georgia World Congress Center is up to where we are. And this incredible facility that we've got here, the storied history of the 1996 Olympics and the renovations that have been done on this very boathouse are really one to make the visitor say, wow, that was an incredible experience. And Georgia's really got it going on. So with that, happy to entertain any questions that y'all may have. Happy to do some additional research if there's any requests from the committee. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tyler. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm sitting over here having to count my fingers and toes.
Well, thankfully, you don't have enough fingers and toes to account for the impact of tourism in Georgia.
That's right. That's right. Listen, we really do appreciate this presentation. Anybody got any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, you're covering the Southeast. How are we ranking in the South? It seems like there are a lot of people moving to the Southeast, right? But I'm curious when in relation to other regions of the country, I would imagine that the growth in tourism dollars in our region of the country is probably the highest, or am I wrong on that?
It has been among the highest, yes. The West Coast has seen a lot of increase. A lot of that, though, is by virtue of increasing their tax rates. Georgia, when the 8% cap on the excise tax that we collect at the local level, that's been in place for about 25, 30 years now. And the legislature has not taken it above that. So our numbers are growing naturally. Other states that are seeing more growth are by virtue of raising the rates.
One more follow-up, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask this question another way. When you look at the investment in tourism across all the states that you deal with, would you say that there's a certain amount of parity amongst all those states, or is there?
So the numbers from the U.S. Travel Association show that at the state level, so the distinction between state and local is critically important there. U.S. Travel Association numbers come out at the state level, and Georgia tends to be on the lower end of that when we look at the 15 states in the CSG South region. So that does not account for the spending that our local CVBs are doing, but at the state level, the tourism spending tends to be on the lower end. One caveat to go with that, if we look at, say, South Carolina or Oklahoma, like I mentioned, their tourism spending does include their state parks. Whereas for Georgia, of course, it does not, those being under the purview of DNR. So it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison, but generally speaking, that state level funding of tourism from the U.S. Travel Association metrics is on the lower end in Georgia.
One more, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. So taken collectively then, if we're looking at this from a 30,000 foot level, when you combine all that in, how do we rank as a state? If I was talking to a friend earlier from LaGrange, and she was telling me what they invest back every year. Or if you're from LaGrange, just LaGrange, but I'm just curious if you take it, in a combined holistic, I guess, I mean, how are we doing if you put it all together?
I'm going to need to pull the numbers and get back to you. I've never done an exercise to aggregate the local dollars and the state dollars, but I will work with my team when I get back to the office and prepare a research memo for the committee that does outline that.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely happy to do it.
To piggyback on that, so if you focused on the excise tax in particular, but then there is that for the hotels, and then there is that additional $5 tax that
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have automatically too. Do you know where Georgia sits either across the South or across the nation then in terms of the total kind of taxes on hotels?
We are among, when you aggregate the state sales and use tax, any local option sales taxes, the excise tax and the $5 fee, we are top 5 in terms of highest rates, effective tax rates on hotel stays.
And one more,
Sure.
and while you focused again on the excise tax, are there any other states that have that $5 fee separated out as well for hotel motels?
Not to my knowledge, but I will certainly follow up and confirm that for the committee in that same research memo. I know the Georgia Hotel and Lodging Association, which is here in the room today, has done some work on that. They may have a more definitive answer if you can catch with them. But I will certainly have my team look at that and include that in the follow-up documentation for the committee.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Senator Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tyler, let me ask you the way that we do the hotel motel tax. I believe, well, and y'all help me with the math. Is it 43% can go to
That is a very loaded question because there are many different authorization paragraphs in the state that come with different restrictions on that. But generally speaking, what I think you're getting at there, if a community has got an 8% tax, generally 43.75% of that has to go toward tourism promotion through the DMOs, the Convention and Visitors Bureau or Chamber of Commerce.
and then the rest of it can go to their general fund.
Only the first 3 pennies. So anything above and beyond 3 pennies has to go into tourism, whether it be promotional activities, things like social media. The Georgia Sports Planner is one that a lot of communities will invest in, or tourism product development, which is the brick and mortar investments, the convention centers, the parks and trails, things like that.
You've done a great job of setting the stage for my question. The question that I have is when we look at the way that we do it in Georgia, I think we empower the local governments, said the local CVBs, said to do what they want to in their community. Are other states as liberal on that, or do they, how do we compare what we do? Because I'm a support your local home team.
Amen.
Versus the state pushing from the state down. And I'm just kind of curious how we compare on that flexibility given to the local governments compared to the other states in the Southeast.
Absolutely. So the southern states on the whole are local control. A lot of that attributable to just how large and dynamic the states are. Marketing for a Blue Ridge or McKaysville, Georgia is going to look a lot different than marketing for Brunswick or Savannah. So empowering the local communities is really a southern move. As you get to the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, you tend to see a lot more centralized state level promotional activities. But in terms of local control, the South is really at the forefront of that. And Georgia right there with our peers in terms of allowing local governments to make the decisions about who their CVB is, who's leading their tourism promotion efforts. We are very much at the forefront of that as a state.
What's it look like in content? Thank you.
Are there folks in Georgia that we don't need to trust?
My esteemed colleague on the chairman of the Ag Committee.
Thank you, Tyler.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We
Thank you.
appreciate that. All right. It's a very informative morning, and we're going to wrap up here over the next couple minutes. One of the very interesting conversation that I had yesterday, and I'm going to give my colleagues a moment to speak about some of the things they've heard. I was with Rich McKay yesterday morning for a couple of hours down at the Falcons practice complex, and this fella, oh my gosh, his football knowledge, his football IQ is to this ceiling, and his knowledge of events, sporting events, and concerts and things like that is even higher than that. A genius, so to speak. And one of the things that he talked about, he really bragged on the state of Georgia and where we are with tourism and especially sporting events and concerts. That's more his, he's not doing corn mazes or doing a whole lot of golfing or anything like that. But he, in his world, is really excited about where Georgia is. And where we have been, but he's a little bit worried about the status quo and where we're going or where we're headed. And I think that's kind of a challenge to this committee here that we've not talked about tourism in years in the state legislature. He mentioned Nashville, building a new indoor stadium up there. And we don't have anybody in the room representing Tennessee, do we? So I don't put my foot in my mouth, which is typical, but we'll just talk about them. They were practicing, they were having a joint practice with the Tennessee Titans, and they were talking about that new stadium. And he said that the folks up in Nashville, Tennessee, they don't have a problem looking across the table from Arthur Blank and Rich McKay and telling them, hey, we're going to take all your sporting events and all your concerts. They don't have a problem telling them that. So I think that, you know, while we've been in a very good spot, we're a great place, number one place in America to do business. We're in a good spot, but that don't mean we don't need to keep working, keep pushing forward, get out of the box in our thinking about how we fund projects, how we market tourism and things like that. So I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation this morning. I'm going to let my fellow senators speak if they want to for just a minute before we close this thing out.
Chairman, I want to thank you for the great job you've done in chairing the committee. I'm long in the tooth, as you know, so down there at the Capitol. But one of the things I do want to make sure that when we address tourism in Georgia, the other T in that committee business is transportation. And you just mentioned like Nashville, and they're gonna steal all our events and stuff. Well, you know, say what you want to, the Atlanta airport is one of the driving factors for tourism in Georgia. I know all those people that, you know, if you want to say, I've always wondered which was the bigger economic engine for Georgia, the port in Savannah or the Atlanta airport. And I don't really care because they're both great assets for Georgia. And when I look over here at Mr. Hewitt, said he can't bring in people from California to Savannah unless they come through Atlanta. And that's where, for me, those kind of things is we got to work all of our partnerships to make Georgia the #1 tourism destination in the country. And that's where I applaud your study committee work to get this thing rocking and rolling. It is one of those things we need to work on, and I look forward to serving with you throughout the committee term.
One of the things that I've been hearing in preparation for even this first meeting from folks who are more, I will say, on the developer side, whether they're private developers like you, sir, or hoteliers or restaurants or people, you know, thinking about events, is this idea of kind of what I'll call an economic cycle or circle, right? So we've talked a lot, I think, about tourism in terms of the dollars that we as a state extract from that industry. And what I'm excited for us to do in our time here is to also talk about what that reinvestment looks like, right? Because yes, you invest, you bring people, they spend money here, you reinvest. So what does that full circle look like in terms of the work that we're doing in order to make sure that we're not missing out on opportunities and to make sure that folks who want to come to our state and build, I don't want to say get the return on investment per se that they need, because then that sounds like tax rebates or tax incentives. I'm not saying that necessarily, but what I am saying is, how do we continue to make sure that all of those businesses are encouraged to stay here in Georgia, reinvest in Georgia, to continue to move throughout different whether it's regions or cities in Georgia, and continue to build in a way that grows our state overall and the perception of our state more widely, whether that's in this region or across the country. So I'm excited about the conversation that we started here today, and really do kind of encourage us to think about, what does reinvestment look like? Not just the idea of what we get out of the tourism industry, though we are very clear as the number 2 industry, abutting ag, very quickly, the extraction is really important, but what does that reinvestment look like?
Well, I just want to say thank you to the folks in Hall County first for the great hospitality. I mean, this has been a lot of fun, and I think the fact I told Chairman Eccles earlier, the amount of people that are here today. I've served on a lot of study committees. I've never been on one that had this kind of participation. That tells me that maybe not only is there a lot of interest in it, but maybe we've got a little catching up to do in the state. Obviously, I sort of feel that way. There's a lot of interest in it, right? But I'm reminded of the power of tourism, and I look at what Drew and Shelley and their family have done with Jay Moore as far as their family farm being able to continue and prosper, and a lot of people tell you it's kind of known that I'm a huge Elvis fan, right? And Elvis, he spent most of all the money he ever made. In the 70s, he'd go out on like a 15-city tour, and he'd net, $800,000, and he'd come back home, and about 2 months, his bank account would be empty again. He'd have to go out on tour again, right? And so when he died, he left a $7 million estate. That's all he left in 1977. And his father was executor of his estate. Well, his father died 2 years later, and at that point, before he passed away, he appointed Priscilla Presley to be the executor of Elvis's estate. And so she met with all these experts, and they told her, they said, the only thing you can do is you're going to have to sell Graceland. You're going to have to sell all of Elvis's personal effects if your daughter Lisa Marie is ever going to have an inheritance. And she told him, she said, Elvis left everything to Lisa Marie. And she said, I don't feel like it's mine to sell. That's Lisa Marie's home. And so, she knew that Elvis had left obviously a legacy. He's the greatest solo recording artist of all time, Well, she got with a guy named Jack Soden, who's an investment banker from Kansas City. And they went around to the Biltmore. They were precluded from borrowing any money to open Graceland to the public, and she didn't know if the interest would even be there. That was because after Elvis died, they came back and reevaluated his estate because the record sales went up a whole bunch right there for a little while, and they reevaluated it $25 million. They couldn't borrow any money. They took the last $500,000 that was in the estate checking account, and they pre-sold $60,000 worth of tickets. They opened Graceland up in June of 1982, and they netted back that $560,000 in 38 days. And today, Graceland is the second most visited private home behind the White House in the United States. That's what the power of tourism can do, right? And so I'm excited of what the opportunities lay ahead for our state. Specifically, I'm excited about, I'm a rural guy, right? And so I have to, although we all serve, we all are senators that represent the entire state, I'm excited about what tourism could probably do for some of our rural communities, because it is getting harder for people that own land, family farms, and that kind of thing to pass it down to the next generation. And Drew, I want to thank you for really all your work on this. This has been fantastic. And so when I ask these questions, y'all, honest to gosh, I really don't know the answers. I'm wanting to know, where we do compare at, and I look forward to that. Always. One of the things that I do as a farmer, if I see a farmer that's doing something well, I want to go find out what he's doing. And I may go to another farm and try to figure out a way to blend those together and see what I'm doing well and what I could possibly do better. And I think that this exercise that we're doing with that is going to enable us to do that. And I appreciate your leadership on this. And again, to everyone in Hall County, thank you for making us all feel so welcome.
Chairman Eccles, and just let me kind of echo some of the comments that many of the members on this committee have already made. I appreciate your efforts in pulling all this together and for holding the very first meeting up here in Gainesville. And I can just say that it's been it's extremely enlightening for me to listen to the speakers and learn as much as I learned thus far. But I also want to say that we need to continue to keep the focus on what's important to all of Georgia. We got to recognize that North Georgia is very different than South Georgia, and the rural and urban areas are very different than some of the suburban areas. And what I heard today was critically important, and I think that's something that should continue to benefit CVBs across the state, and that is giving them local control. And one of the things that we have to consider as committee is, out of this report, what are we going to enact in terms of legislation and what should we consider? And I would certainly hope that we would look at strengthening that local control for the local communities throughout the state. And certainly hope that we look at the tax rates and get a lot more input across the state on what those rates should be. And even its $5 bed tax, if that should go away or should be converted to something else that allows these various CVBs across the state to gain more revenue. Because as the state continue to grow, I think we all can agree that we're going to need more resources to build facilities such as this. So I've learned a lot. I'm glad that I've had an opportunity to be on this committee. And I think one thing that particularly stood out today was the report from Capstone about the investment in some idle resources across the state and how you can build those private-public partnerships. And Mr. Chairman, I think that's something that we should consider more and kind of emphasize and see if we can strengthen that relationship to encourage more investors to invest in some of these idle assets we have across the state. So I'm looking forward to continuing the dialogue. And I said this is a great start to this meeting and looking forward to coming up with legislation that makes sense for Georgians. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jones. This truly is a bipartisan effort here. Y'all can tell. And I think that that's one of the things I like about it. I'm excited going forward. Tourism is good for everybody. It is not a partisan issue. This is good. This is going to lift people up. This is going to build up communities. It's going to provide a lot of opportunities for people from all walks of Georgia, rural, urban, north, south. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to have a little part in that. And as we close, I'm going to thank some folks right quick. I got my man Evan standing over there, the cool dude with the beard right there and the nice mustache. He's with Senate Press. He has done a phenomenal job getting all this stuff set up. Charlie Barrett out of the Pro Tem's office, he is welcoming a new child last night or early this morning. So he's there. Got Miss Williams over here with Senate Research. Beside her, I've got the esteemed Bernita Simmons, who did not get a raise when I got elected and got chosen as floor leader, although she probably should have. She's got a whole lot to keep up with here. She just rolled her eyes at me when I told her we got a study committee. She said, "Oh my gosh." But we've had a lot of industry partners. Amanda Dice and Lee Hughes have done a phenomenal job. Just want to thank them and all of our folks here at the Boathouse here in Gainesville. I see I'm going to mess this up just horribly. Look, Emily Leonard back there in the back, she gave me some talking points this morning. So thank everybody that had a part in this. And thank y'all for being here. We're going to close up. And I think we're getting ready for some kind of power lunch or something like that. So I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. We're going to do some questions. Yep. All right. We're adjourned.